Parents, you've been told to fear carbs. Now, carbs are the reason you gain weight, spike your blood sugar, and feel tired after meals. So the popular advice is just eat carbs with fat or protein. Add some bacon to your pancakes, cheese to your potatoes, butter to your bread. But what if this advice is completely backwards? What if pairing carbs with fat actually increases your blood sugars and decreases your insulin sensitivity? And what if it's not just about sugar, but the toxic effect of fat on your mitochondria? So today we're going to break down the 10 most popular fat-carb combo foods that quietly sabotage your blood sugar, and what to eat instead to feel full, lower blood sugars, lose weight, but most of all, to get healthier. Believe it or not, you can lower your blood sugars and lower your weight and actually be less healthy. Now, we have turned health into chasing lab numbers, and we're not addressing the root cause. The real problem with why people have high blood sugars and high insulin and too much body fat is eating the wrong combination of fat and carbohydrates. Your body is a chemistry lab, and if you eat the wrong way, you will ruin your metabolic flexibility. So when you eat carb-rich foods like pancakes or potatoes, your insulin rises to shuttle glucose into your cells. This is very normal. We have made a normal, healthy process that you used to enjoy as a kid into an abnormal fear of food. Your body is supposed to secrete insulin after eating carbohydrates, and if you didn't do that, you couldn't live. Insulin is an essential hormone designed to store energy, and the amount of insulin is dependent upon how much energy you are eating in carbohydrates, specifically how much sugar, glucose, you have in your diet. But excessive insulin by itself is also inflammatory. And when you eat the same carbs with a heavy load of saturated fat, that sugar stays in your bloodstream longer. That insulin over time spikes higher, and your mitochondria will struggle to burn it. So many people don't eat any carbs and eat predominantly protein or fat, and this will take care of your blood sugar spikes. But is it really going to give you health and longevity? I'll answer that question later. Now, right now, let's understand why, if you want to eat your carbohydrates, that eating fat with your carbohydrate drives your blood sugars higher and your insulin higher. A big part of the problem is that you are probably eating a lot of saturated fat. Saturated fat like palmitic acid, it blocks insulin signaling and floods the bloodstream with lipotoxic molecules. And you know it to be true because people are telling you not to eat carbohydrates, right? They are encouraging you to eat more fat and discouraging you to eat carbohydrates. Don't you find that suspicious? If you are truly repairing your metabolism, then you should be able to eat carbohydrates, but you're not able to. It spikes your sugars because when you eat fat, fat reduces your mitochondrial efficiency by inhibiting the electron transport chain, especially complex 1, increasing reactive oxygen species. The result? Your cells become less responsive to insulin, your blood sugar goes up and not down. So you may be confused. So now let's look at some real life examples to break down the 10 most popular foods that mix carbs with fat in the worst possible way, and what healthier alternatives that you can eat that can actually support your mitochondrial metabolism. Number 1 is grilled cheese. Let's face it, this is a perfectly delicious quick meal, right? So what's the problem? Well, it's the white bread and cheese. Refined carbs that turn into pure sugar, pure glucose, and then that cheese is essentially saturated fat. Neither one has any fiber. A better option would be whole grain toast with mashed beans and some diced carrots, onions, and celery, and a layer of sliced avocado and tomato, and to top that off with a pile of leafy greens. Then you add some balsamic vinegar to enhance your insulin sensitivity. And I'll get back to that vinegar a little later. Number 2 is mac and cheese. That is also a quick, common meal that you can whip together. So what's the problem? Well, again, refined pasta That creamy cheese sauce is ultra processed fat, oftentimes with chemicals. It's a starch overload. Starch turns into sugar, specifically glucose. A better option would be to change that pasta to a whole grain pasta. And even better, change it to a chickpea or lentil pasta. Make that sauce yourself. Blend some cashews with some white beans, garlic and mustard and nutritional yeast. You will be surprised at how creamy your sauce will be and how so much better your body will feel after eating that. And of course, this is if you can get your body trained for beans. And many of you are hesitant to add beans because you know you're going to get bloated. Well, beans are packed with soluble fiber, which draws in water, and hence you feel full quicker. And you associate that with feeling bloated. You're actually full. So you eat less. You also improve your bowel movements and you reduce inflammation because those beans are nourishing your gut microbiome. But you probably are associated being bloated as not feeling well. So if you eat a ton of beans and you haven't had that training, then you're not going to like it. Beans need to be trained. Hence, you got to start with one bean. And you literally add another bean every day until you work up to a cup. And eventually, we hope you get to 3 cups a day. Now, number 3 is potato and cheese. Baked potatoes, right? What's the problem with that? Well, potatoes, they haven't really shown to be a great carbohydrate to eat unless there's no food around, like in Ireland. They are great tasting, but the way we eat potatoes actually end up raising our blood sugars even more. And on top of that, that cheese, because it's full of saturated fat, delays the clearance of your blood sugars and increases the amount of fat you're going to store. Potato skins, they also have a toxin. This toxin isn't killed with heat, and even if you bake it or grill it, your potato skin will still have a toxin. That toxin is called glycoalkaloids, which is a toxin to your nervous system. And of course, the dose makes the poison. How many of you blame your bloatiness and discomfort to beans when in fact, maybe it's your potato that's green? Green sprouting potatoes have more toxin. So hence, if you see a green sprouting potatoes, those potatoes with eyes, and you make your first peel and you see a layer of green, you probably shouldn't eat that potato, or you got to really shave all that green off to get rid of the glycoalkaloids. The best way to eat potatoes is to boil them in water. Boiled potatoes can actually help you lose weight. But a better option would be sweet potatoes. And if you wanted to roast them, you can still roast sweet potatoes and then top it off with some black beans and salsa for fiber and flavor. Of course, you can add some avocado. That would add even more creaminess. You can sprinkle some nuts and seeds and you got yourself a delicious meal. You're just missing some greens. So put that on a bed of greens and my goodness, you have yourself a low glycemic, powerful, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory rich dish. Unfortunately, most people love to eat their potatoes. Specifically, number 4, they're French fries. Now, did you know that French fries aren't really French? They're actually named by American soldiers stationed in Belgium. And I believe during World War I, the French-speaking regions in Belgium, they actually ate a lot of these fries. And so soldiers call them French fries. And the French part of the fries just refers to how the potatoes are cut into long, thin strips, known as Frenching in cooking. So what's the problem with French fries? Well, you got it. It's a deep frying in industrial oils. Basically, you're taking a pure starch, almost pure starch, and then you're adding oxidized fat. That combo is not so good. A better option would be to air fry roasted sweet potato wedges, add some paprika, and dip it in a vinegar-based dipping sauce. But the potato is America's favorite vegetable. And we're eating 1.9 billion pounds of potato in a year. That's about 6.6 pounds per person. And our favorite way to eat that are potato chips. Now, not all potato chips are really made out of potatoes. Have you ever tasted Pringles? When I was a kid, I really always wanted to eat Pringles because I found them so cute. They're in this tube. Each slice is perfectly shaped and they all stack so nicely together like a deck of cards. I don't get why they're called potato chips because there's more than potatoes in it. If you've ever bought a bag of potatoes, you know that no two potatoes look alike. So how do Pringles get all those potato chips to stack upon each other so nicely? Well, because it's really not all potato. If you read the package of a Pringles, there is degerminated corn flour, corn starch, rice flour, maltodextrin, mono and diglycerides, wheat starch. Does that sound like potato to you? There's 16 grams of carbohydrates in a Pringles servings and 9 grams of fat. So essentially you're eating chemicals glued together with sugars and fat, right? You have different kinds of oils, like corn, cottonseed, soybean, and safflower oils. That's a lot of different kinds of seed oils that you get in that one little chip. And maybe you don't eat that, but you like real potato chips. Well, you still got the same problem. Thin slices of starch fried in pro-inflammatory fat, making that a hyper-palatable blood sugar spiking food. When you deep fry potatoes, especially in industrial seed oils at high temperatures that have been reused, they generate a cocktail of mitochondria damaging toxins. These compounds can impair cellular respiration, promote oxidative stress, and increase insulin resistance. Now, I have a lot of science gurus and medical doctors watching my videos, but if you're not into science, then you can either fast forward or maybe take some notes and you may be able to learn something new in the next few minutes. So here are your main mitochondrial culprits. Number one is acrolein, which is formed from decomposition of glycerol and fatty acids at high temperatures, especially when you keep reusing the oils. Now, it's toxic because it inhibits mitochondrial enzymes involved in the electron transport chain. It increases reactive oxygen species, and this all leads to mitochondrial DNA damage. It alters the mitochondrial membrane potential to ultimately reduce ATP production. Not good. Number two is 4-hydroxyl-nonenal. This is formed from peroxidation of omega-6 polyunsaturated fats, especially from linoleic acid from soybean, corn, and sunflower oil. It is toxic because it covalently modifies mitochondrial proteins and impairs oxidative phosphorylation to reduce ATP production. It damages complexes 1 and 3 of the electron transport chain. And worst of all, it induces mitochondrial apoptosis, the cell death pathway. Not good when you want to live longer. Number 3 is advanced lipooxidation end products, which is formed from oxidized lipids reacting with proteins and DNA. It's toxic because it impairs mitochondrial enzymes. It increases mitochondrial membrane permeability and calcium influx, leading to destruction of the mitochondria. This also promotes insulin resistance in your muscle and liver cells. Number 4 is acrylamide, which is formed from the Maillard reaction between asparagine and sugars in potatoes when fried above 120 degrees Celsius. They directly damage mitochondrial membranes and induce cytochrome C release, initiating apoptosis.
Hi friends, I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now.
The point of eating is not to kill off your mitochondria. Acrylamide inhibits key mitochondrial enzymes, including those involved in glycolysis and the Krebs cycle. Then you will also have number 5, trans fats, especially oxidized trans lipids, which is formed from partial hydrogenation or high heat degradation of unsaturated fats. The toxic effects are that they can incorporate into mitochondrial membranes, disrupting the fluidity and function, and it increases your oxidative stress and impairs fatty acid oxidation. This leads to more mitochondrial damage. Then you have oxidized LDL. This is indirect and it's a post-consumption effect. So deep fried foods can raise your oxidized LDL in the blood, which damages your endothelial cells that live in your blood vessels, and it contributes to mitochondrial dysfunction in your blood vessel tissue, the vascular tissue. So when you eat deep fried foods, you not only damage your mitochondria in your liver, in your pancreas, and in your muscles, you also damage it in your arteries. You harden your arteries. This translates into poor blood flow. And when you eat saturated fat, your mitochondria becomes less efficient in handling glucose. And instead of clean energy, you get incomplete oxidation of fat, more acylcarnitines in your blood, an overproduction of reactive oxygen species, which damages insulin receptors, and increases ceramide formation, which blocks glucose entry into muscle cells. And this is why researchers are now showing that high-fat diets actually reduce insulin sensitivity, especially after your meals. So people have made carbohydrates the villain. We become carb phobic, but it's not the carbs. It's how your body can or can't handle the carbs when you are eating a mixed diet of carbs and fat. So instead of eating deep fried potatoes, how about eating some baked beets, some baked carrots, some baked sweet potatoes? Sprinkle that with some kale chips, toss it with some lemon juice and herbs. Doesn't that sound so much healthier? Number 6 are pancakes with bacon. Now the problem is not only the sugar rush with the syrup and then you got the glucose rush with the pancakes, you also get the mitochondria shutdown from the fat in the bacon. You get metabolic chaos. And why is that? Well, bacon is full of saturated fat. They're also full of nitrates. And when you cook nitrates, when you put it on high heat, it reacts with amino acids and you make a new toxin called nitrosamines. Nitrosamines are carcinogenic. If the FDA is willing to throw away blockbuster medications like Zantac and metformin, as well as life-saving high blood pressure medications, because at one time, these medications, they got contaminated with nitrosamines, that you should think twice about eating food laced with tons of nitrates. Because when you add heat or acid and your stomach is full of acid, that protein reacts with the nitrates to form nitrosamines. Now, a better option would be to make your own pancakes with whole grains or oat pancakes topped with fresh fruit. Sprinkle on some whole nuts. You can even add some chia jam that has 2 ingredients, chia seeds and fruit. You can add some cinnamon or vinegar-based syrups. And I would really skip the bacon. However, there's another food made famous by someone called Colonel Sam, and that's fried chicken. Now, you think you're eating protein, but are you really? Have you seen the coating around that chicken? The problem is you're eating highly refined carbohydrates from that flour coating. And then you add heat, you deep fry it, which gives you that whole list of problems. And then you put the two together and you get a dual hit in glucose control. Hey, I know it tastes good. And even if you skip the carbohydrate coating and just put seasonings, how many of you season your food with sugar, right? Pure sugar with some spices. Is that not a carbohydrate? A better option would be to eat baked tofu or tempeh nuggets with a whole grain coating. Sure, you're not going to get the crunch of deep frying. There will literally never be a substitute that will taste like deep fried foods. Just accept it. There never will be. And if you want to give up bad food, you have to understand that there will never be a perfect substitute for your bad food. Bad food is bad for a reason. It has to be put together in a certain way. And ask yourself, do you want to get healthy or are you just in it for the superficial? Because if you want to get healthy, healthier proteins with greens and a mustard vinegar dip would be so much better. And if you want to make a honey mustard, instead of adding honey, blend some dates in your dressing. You will be amazed at how sweet your dressings will be without any added sugar or honey. Because honey, sure, it's natural. People didn't process it, but an insect processed it. So you're still getting processed food. And yes, I totally understand cavemen may have been eating honey forever. But really, did they eat it that often? I don't think they had a cabinet full of honey, right? They didn't have a kitchen where they can just walk over. They had to search for miles, maybe days and weeks. And occasionally, they would come across a beehive. So if you really want to eat honey that badly and you go and find a beehive yourself, then you actually deserve to eat it if you can actually eat it safely without having the bees harm you. But if it's in your cabinet where you can reach it, I don't think that's really living a caveman life. Our modern processed foods have made it so convenient that we can just drive through anytime and buy number 8, a cheeseburger. And what exactly is a cheeseburger? White refined starch for your buns, processed cheese, many times it's full of chemicals with saturated fat, and then you got that patty of fatty beef, which just spells inflammation, insulin resistance, and glucose spikes. Oh, I almost forgot the sauce. That's full of seed oils and sugar. A better option would be to use cabbage or kale as a wrap or eat it with a whole grain bun and change your patty to a veggie patty filled with lentils and black beans. If you make it yourself, if you really want to eat meat, you can actually put some meat in that. And then you load it with veggies, avocado, and use hummus as a sauce. Then you get your fiber, your anti-inflammatory nutrients, as well as feed your gut microbiome. Now, number 9 is mashed potatoes. Now, mashed potatoes by itself would be okay if you didn't put all that other fat and cream and lard in it. It has a ton of fat. And we've learned now starch and fat doesn't work. A better option would be to not add fat to mashed potatoes, or to make half your potatoes cauliflower, or just eat mashed cauliflower. And you can still spice it up with seasonings like nutritional yeast, garlic, and onion powder. You don't need to starve yourself to eat healthy, right? It's actually pretty cheap. And if you want to take it to the next level, instead of eating mashed white potatoes, how about mashing some sweet potatoes with lemon and herbs? And if you want to take it to another higher level, how about mashing some beans and replace it for your potatoes? And of course, you have to train your body to be able to tolerate beans. You don't just wake up one day eating 3 cups of beans. If you struggle, 1 bean, 1 day at a time is a great way to start, and every day you add another bean. So literally it's 1 bean per meal. You can open up a whole can and refrigerate it and just start eating 1 bean a day. And then you add the next day 2 beans a day. Then you can maybe add 2 beans for 2 meals, and so on and so forth, where you work up to eating 1 cup of beans at a serving. And if you feel like you're getting too bloated, slow down. Let yourself take a breather and just continue the last amount of beans in which you are most comfortable. Beans are super convenient. This weekend, I went to a conference for 5 days, and I opened 4 cans of beans, no salt beans, no flavor. I put them in 4 different mason jars, and then I added a little bit of vinegar to each of the cup to kind of help it preserve just a little bit longer. And I diced some carrots and onions. And on top of that, I put a bunch of spices, which included nutritional yeast, turmeric powder, paprika powder, and pepper. And every morning, I would start off my day with a mason jar full of beans. Even though beans are super cheap, somehow I can never find beans when I'm traveling unless I go to the supermarket. And a can of beans is around $1. But everywhere you go, they serve you anything but beans and very highly processed foods, even at Costco. Like those giant Costco hot dogs. And whether you get it at Costco or any other venue, the problem with hot dogs is that it's a highly processed meat. Processed meat with white bun, you got the nitrates, the saturated fat, the refined starch, 0 fiber. Does that really sound like a health food for your body? A better option would be to try a carrot dog, where you cook the carrot, you make it look like a hot dog, and then you cook the carrot so it's soft enough, then you marinate that, and then you season it with your choice of toppings. Now, some people choose to put that carrot back to darken it, to put it through a little bit of heat. And even though it's not totally healthy to darken your carrot, it's so much healthier than eating a boiled hot dog. And obviously, eating a carrot dog does not replace a lot of the protein and the nutrients in that meat. So of course, you're gonna have to serve a different source of protein, but at least your kids can get a little bit of a healthier hot dog without telling them that it's not a real hot dog. You can always replace that whole thing with mushrooms. Have you ever tried a grilled portobello on a whole wheat bun with your favorite vegetables and hummus? It is delicious. If you're not on extreme diets, you're probably eating the standard American diet. The standard American diet is designed to kill your metabolic flexibility. You're supposed to be able to eat different types of macronutrients from fat to protein and carbohydrates normally without getting sick. But really, when we eat food, we actually aren't eating food. We're eating a lot of chemicals. But we explain food as if it's pure ingredients, right? Pure protein, like you're eating protein powder, or pure fat, like vegetable oil or butter, or some pure carbohydrates. But unless you're on a ketogenic diet where you're eating boatloads of fat, most people eat food that has all of these macronutrients in, right? Who eats just pure sugar? Extreme people who are challenging their bodies for what purpose? I mean, if you're in it for longevity, it's not too far-fetched. There's a lot of longevity cultures around the world that we can learn from. But if you think you can outbeat longevity cultures with your diet, your unique diet, experimental diet, good luck to you. I doubt you'll find a role model who is long and healthy and older, right? Extreme diets are just that extreme. But right now we're just talking about blood sugars. So the key to lowering your blood sugars is having metabolic flexibility. And the real path to balance blood sugars isn't about banning carbs. It's about fixing the cellular machinery that burns fuels and choosing the right carbs with the antioxidants that protect that machinery. So in order for you to burn fuel, you will need your mitochondria to work, whether you're eating fat or sugar. But if you're eating sugar, you need insulin to respond appropriately to your sugar. So your meals need to support this, otherwise your numbers go high. And you have to lower your saturated fats from animals, from plants. All seed oils have saturated fat, just less in animals. But when you eat whole foods, you're actually eating foods with fiber. And what people don't realize is that the fiber, it traps the antioxidants. So it comes as a package. If you want to reduce inflammation and save your mitochondria, you got to eat more of those antioxidants. Those antioxidants you can't get from a fiber supplement. And hence, fiber by itself, it's helpful, but it's not sufficient. And if you're a starch skeptic or a glucose guard, it's really time for you to rethink the war on carbs. The real danger isn't carbohydrates alone. It's a metabolic gridlock caused by mixing your carbohydrates with high fat and ultra processed ingredients. And if you just try by starting with one swap a week, switch your cheese food, those comfort foods, for something fiber rich, a whole plant-based version, you will notice that if you go all in, your blood sugar will be so much better, your energy will improve, and you'll start regaining your metabolic freedom. But that's also why don't make any dietary changes without consulting your own medical doctor. These foods are very powerful. Of course, some foods are more powerful than others. If you want to learn more about that, watch the next video.